Good morning. And State of the Union is rather a grand assumption, but I'm going to talk about two things which I believe will profoundly affect the Union. This, in my view, is a seminal year. That means that nothing following it will be the same as it was. We're into a new order of things because of two giant factors that have come into sight this year. They've been on the periphery and now they're central. They are climate change and artificial intelligence. Really transformative events. They're like the discovery of two new continents, except they don't act like continents. They're coming in on us. We are not going to them. And they're going to leave us quite substantially changed going forward. The way we work, the way we live, the way we play. Everything is changing because of these two giant forces that are now unleashed. Climate change, you've seen some of the effects of it this year in Texas, is going to have a global effect. And we don't know too much about what there will be because prognosticating very far into the future on climate is not a realistic thing. We do know that we're going to see a continuous rise in the global temperature, but where that stops, or if it stops, we do not know. We do know, or we speculate, that human activity has led dramatically to this increase, and we can somewhat curb its effects by reducing the amount of pollutants that we put into the atmosphere. However, we're not doing it fast enough to save us from the 1.5 degrees rise in centigrade that seems to be regarded as critical. That is the goal of the United Nations, the goal of the administration, and yet it is not going to be met. In the US and in Western Europe especially, there have been tremendous strides in reducing particularly the amount of carbon going into the air. But this has not been met equally by other parts of the world, particularly South Asia. The effects of those countries that are still emerging economically and that cannot be and maybe should not be persuaded to stop totally burning fossil fuels. India is building coal plants and China is building coal plants. Not because they are not aware of the climate, they're very much aware of the climate, but because they have huge needs socially and economically, and the two, of course, are entwined. This is going to be a very difficult period. It's also going to produce tremendous migrations around the world. We already have a huge migration problem. People are coming out of Africa, across the Mediterranean, into the southern tier of European countries. They're not very welcome, but they're coming. And we're seeing them across the English Channel, up to 1,000 a day in small boats. And of course, the southern border, so close to us here, is well known for the number of human beings trying to get into the US and our efforts to keep them out, because we simply cannot have open borders. No country can, and yet migration will continue in Africa, in South America. It goes on all the time. Some of you may know that I'm a native of Zimbabwe. I was born there, I grew up there, and so I watch it very closely. And on the Zambezi River, between Zimbabwe and Zambia, lies the greatest man-made impoundment of water, the Kariba Dam. It's a hydroelectric project built by the Italians, but financed and organized by the British during the colonial period. I happened to be, as a very young reporter, there during the construction of it. Briefly, I covered it for an American magazine, and That was 1958. I was there. It was not yet quite complete, but it was very close. Since then, it has provided power to both of those countries, and they have thought they had a certain eternal source of electricity. They have Kariba. However, recent droughts, we assume part of global warming, the Zambezi River flow has fallen. One of the great rivers of the world has gone through years of not having sufficient water, with devastating effects on the power supply to Zambia and Zimbabwe, but also to the wildlife along the shores of the Zambezi. Global warming affects everyone. On the ground, people are moving. From Zimbabwe, there are about 3 million illegal aliens in South Africa looking for work, and there isn't enough work for them there either. So this is the situation we have with global warming. It's transformative, it's disturbing. It now has a certain inevitability until such time as by forces we cannot contemplate, it reaches a zenith, or we manage to totally cut the amount of greenhouse gas that we are putting into the atmosphere, which is creating the lens that is heating up the world. We will see movements. I cannot believe that people will continue to want to move in the quantities they have been moving into the south and the west if temperatures are going to remain very high. And there have been times in India and in the Middle East where the temperatures have been right at the level where human life cannot be sustained. We cannot have the whole world living in air conditioning. So that is one of the great transformative issues. Now, it's not entirely negative. Some places will benefit. Not if you run a ski resort in the mid-Atlantic states, but certainly it will help maybe agriculture in the northern states, in Canada. There will be changes. It will not all be drought. The greatest worry, I think, in the short term of climate change is sea level rise. We have the oceans warmer than ever and rising, which endangers for the U.S. both coasts. The East Coast may be a little more vulnerable essentially from Florida to Maine. There is danger of flooding, and New York City, Boston, and Miami are in danger of being awash. We'll need seawalls, pumps, really major engineering to keep the sea at bay. Not a happy prospect, and it's certainly going to put huge stress on all the other resources that we have. Then we come to artificial intelligence, which is suddenly on everybody's lips this year. That's new. We've known it was coming as we knew global warming was coming. But this, the seminal year, is the year in which it arrived four square. Artificial intelligence is going to affect everything. It's going to affect our lives no matter how we live them, no matter at what point of the economic scale we're on. We are going to be changed by artificial intelligence for good and for consequences that we cannot easily imagine. I will give you some examples initially of the good. The effect on research is going to be fabulous. It's already happening. About 7% of the effort in medical research is now using artificial intelligence. It will push back many disease frontiers, push them far back. It will probably lead, and again, this is something we're talking about again, is greater longevity. It will lead to many good things. It will lead initially to the pairing up of disease and medicine in an astounding way. It will lead to new therapies, new compounds to counteract disease. We've essentially, the human race has not totally eradicated infectious disease, but it's pushed it back. Now we're going to start pushing all of those things that affect us, particularly as we age, which means an increase in longevity. That is, of course, if you can go from high medicine to health care to make sure that he gets to the people, which is a political problem and a separate one, but it's something that you might want to think on from time to time. Industry is going to be affected, and particularly my trade, journalism, and affiliated words in, words out endeavors are already being stood on their heads. There's a celebrated example in New York City where a lawyer went into court with a wonderful brief citing excellent precedents, except not one word of it was true. It was a hallucination, as they say, of artificial intelligence. In journalism, our first challenge, is how do we verify information? What is its provenance? How can we establish its provenance? It's always a problem. Disinformation, malicious, false information, it's going to be almost impossible by any of the old ways of knowing if something is real. Somewhat facetiously, I said to one of the big international lawyers in Washington, if you want to have absolutely verifiable documentation, incontrovertibly what you want, you had better type it on a manual typewriter, or even an electric one, put it in an envelope, wrap a piece of pink tape around, because you like to do that, and send it by hand, because that way it will be out of the reach of AI and all of these millions of computer scouring devices that are at work seeking information. On the upside, people say, and they've said it to me, and I've done a lot of reporting on this, don't worry about artificial intelligence. It's just the next stage in automation. And automation produced jobs. Industrialization produced jobs. It started producing them really right after the invention of the steam engine, which was invented by a man called Newcomen to pump water out of coal mines. And then, of course, Watt added a condenser, and we're off to the Industrial Revolution. We knew how to use shaft horsepower already from water power, animal power. This just added a marvelous machine to turn those shafts, whether they were on railway trains or in mills. Revolutionary. Now we're into a new revolution. But the idea that because that happened, we made more stuff, we needed more people to buy and sell the stuff, and we never saw job loss through automation. We saw some job adjustment, but not job loss. Net employment has gone up steadily. But now we're looking at something different. We're looking at a technology which affects services, and we are living in a service economy. We're not living nearly as much in an industrial economy as we did when we were seeing all these benefits from automation. We're living in a service economy, and artificial intelligence looks set to subtract jobs, not to add them, to subtract them. When I was checking in my hotel up the street, they wanted me to do it on my computer and go straight to my room, no need to see a human being. This is just the beginning of the job subtraction. This is just computers at work, but if we go to artificial intelligence, we're already seeing a decline. The other big words in, words out area I forgot to mention, which I should do as I'm here in the university, education. It will affect education. Again, how will you verify a student's essay? How will you establish that he or she wrote that, not that it was taken off the internet from artificial intelligence or out of the computer derived by artificial intelligence? This is going to happen in a massive scale. Intellectual property, which is really so vital to industrial advance, to the ability to invent something and get the reward of it before other people steal it, is endangered. Intellectual property will be harder to hide, harder to defend. In fact, it will become very public property. These are huge issues. These are going to change, and I said transformative. They are going to be massively, incredibly transformative. Things are going to be different going forward in different climate and different in how we work and play, etc. What will be the jobs lost to artificial intelligence? They will, unfortunately, be the entry-level jobs. I mentioned the hotel. You can see it in shops where you're checking yourself out now, in the supermarket, checking yourself out in a drugstore. And this is going to continue exponentially. The subtraction of work that was done at a fairly low level by us people, human beings, will now be done by artificial intelligence. And by and large, it'll be done better. There's no question of that. There will be no bad days, no bad sick days, and no mistakes. The other area that'll be wiped out is customer relations. You know how awful that has become. You phone up a company. You're their customer. You expect service, and you get a disembodied voice which tells you if you want this, which is not what you want, push 9. And anyway, after about 25 minutes and a couple of stiff drinks, you may get in touch with a human being whose native language, they probably speak a lot better than they speak English. And this frustration, well, this is all going to go to artificial intelligence. You're going to talk, you're going to pick up the phone, you're going to say, look, I have a problem with my computer. And the artificial intelligence is going to say, oh, I understand totally. You could try this and this and this, and talk to you as though you had a human being on the line, which is more than you can get at the moment, but it is not an employment advance because call centers will become obsolete. And that will take out a lot of jobs, a lot of first-tier jobs, early employment, or later employment for retired people or people about to retire. Anyway, they are greatly endangered. The public will benefit, except there will be jobs lost. Now, people in the artificial intelligence industry are divided. Some I have talked to, right at the cutting edge, see nothing but trouble ahead. Others who are benefiting or enjoying the intellectual excitement of developing this incredible stage in scientific evolution are thrilled, and they believe many things will happen that could never happen heretofore. That, for example, an electric utility can manage its load, predict the weather better, manage its load better, shed load, and as we get more small inputs, a disaggregation in the computer, in the electric system, we will see more demand for minute management, which artificial intelligence can do very easily and will do. One of the utilities I was interested to learn are already making of artificial intelligence is in San Diego Gas and Electric is using it to find dead trees and have them removed. So rather than attacking a forest when you want to reduce the possibility of wildfires, a problem of our time, you can remove all the dead vegetation. they're using artificial intelligence. The chairman of SEMPRA said this at the Edison Electric Institute conference here in Austin a few months ago. Very significant. Many things that have been too labor-intensive or too hard can now be done. There are upsides. It's not all down. But our political system has not grasped this yet, that this change is coming. And I'd like to say there's something imperious about technology. It forces itself on us once it has been unleashed and developed. We can't stop it. People adopt it here. People must adopt it there. It's not a selective adoption. You can't have, cars and horse and buggies sharing really the same roadway. It doesn't work. And so you're going to be into the advanced systems, whether you wanted them or not. I have a cell phone over there on the table. I didn't want it. I'm old-fashioned. I thought it was a great advance when we went from dial-up to punch, and that was enough evolution for me. I didn't need any more beyond that. I didn't want to be woken up at midnight. I didn't want to feel guilty if I missed your call because I was doing something interesting. But the imperial nature of technology is such that I carry a cell phone in order to earn my living and to remain, current in the world. So there is this imperial aspect to technology, its ability to penetrate lives even where it isn't wanted. And it's now ubiquitous, and nothing will be more ubiquitous than artificial intelligence. It will affect a huge swath of employment. We're not fully sure. There's one number which says worldwide 300 million jobs will be lost. But there will be gains. There will be some jobs created, but probably not on the scale that we saw with manufacturing, automating the production line for automobiles. A huge step forward, but also a source of great wealth and employment. It is unclear that we will see such a leap forward with artificial intelligence. Maybe we have to ask artificial intelligence what its future is, see what it thinks about itself, because there is an ability apparently to do deductive reasoning, not simply to accumulate data and regurgitate data, which is what computers have done very, very successfully, but to actually neural networks to do something deductive, to come up with a solution that is both scary and, in a sense, exciting. And we're only at the beginning. We're only at the very beginning of the artificial intelligence. We have to ask whether it can help with global warming, whether these two great forces that have now come into play in the human sphere can be accommodated, and whether one can ameliorate the other. Can we use artificial intelligence to ameliorate weather, to alleviate global warming and other? Meanwhile, we will see from the weather, we will see new droughts, new destruction of crop areas, new deserts, and new flooding. It is very disturbed. This has been a year of extraordinary aberrant weather, disturbing weather. We have had wildfires in Greece, followed by floods in Greece, terrible floods in North Africa as well, and droughts in much of Africa. These cause people to move, add to the migration crisis as people seek a place to live and eat and be secure. And security for many, many parts of the world is imperiled by global warming. It may or may not be imperiled or helped by artificial intelligence. It is a reasonable concern to wonder what it will do to defense, whether it will be weaponized, whether it will make We know it's weaponized in dishonest information, in fabricated information. It's weaponized. The Russians are masters of it and have a huge investment in misinformation, in penetrating other people's systems, misleading. Will we go from there to something where nothing can be trusted, or where actual fighting weaponry is controlled by AI? It would seem to me a logical expectation that it will be, and that warfare will be changed by AI. Defensive warfare, if I'm right, will become much, much better, and aggressive warfare will become much more threatening. And we're seeing the beginnings, just the beginnings, a hint of this playing out in the tragedy in Ukraine. So when I said at the beginning, this is a seminal time, I think it really is. We know about a lot of other things going on, new materials, the impact of those. We tend to think of technology, and this is a technology place, as being only the electromagnetic products. There are materials, there are all sorts of other parts of this evolution that go beyond electromagnetism and computers. I'm stunned by the possibility that we will get rid of the electric cables we have known. We will take the steel rod out of the middle, and we'll put in a carbon fiber rod that will lower the weight, so the sag, you won't need as many pylons. And because of the new configuration with the new material holding it all together, you'll be able to increase the amount of power moving down the conduit around the cable by twice or threefold, which will change the whole electric world. If with the extant generation, you can you can send twice as much. You haven't increased that production twice as much, but you physically changed the whole picture of the electric power industry. Add to this artificial intelligence, managing each little supply, each little service, contributing to it or subtracting from it. It can calculate how many electric cars will be deployed. It will give you inventory of where the electric vehicles are, all sorts of things that we haven't contemplated heretofore. It is going to be both one of the great exciting times of human history and concomitantly one of the most frightening. Thank you very much.